welcome to No Broken Legs. It is week 2 of the NFL season, and it was a pretty surprising week 1. We'll talk a little bit about that as we look at the week 2 matchups, and that'll be with our good friend Jimmy Champ, who's joining me on this Wednesday night. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of weird stuff went down on week 1, but we'll try to get you guys through what was real and what was just week 1 weirdness and get you headed on the right track for week 2.
Yeah, very important not to overreact to week 1 or even week 2 and 3. We saw last year the Carolina Panthers started 3-0. That did not work out for them. Let's start with the Cleveland Browns, who are 1-0 after a pretty narrow victory over the Carolina Panthers and their old quarterback Baker Mayfield. They are hosting the New York Jets, who got pretty much manhandled by the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns are 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is 40. The money line is minus 265 for the Browns, plus 210 for the Jets. Jimmy, do the Cleveland Browns start this season 2-0, and can they cover a 6.5-point spread with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback?
Well, I think the formula will be the same, but I don't think the Jets offense will be able to mount any kind of second half comeback like the Panthers did with Joe Flacco at quarterback. As I've said, I do like a lot of the Jets offensive weapons, but I just think Joe Flacco is who we know Joe Flacco is. So I will take the Browns at minus 6.5. They should be able to win this game by a touchdown as long as they keep just running the ball and playing outstanding defense, because that's clearly going to have to be the only formula for success with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, because he looked like exactly what you and I expected him to look like.
Jacoby Brissett was terrible, Jimmy. He missed Kareem Hunt on, I don't know if that was a wheel route or if Hunt just lined up as a wide receiver. I can't remember, but he just blew by the linebacker and he was wide open down the sidelines and Brissett missed him horribly. There was that just awful floater that he threw to Cooper where they get bailed out with the pass interference call, but if the cornerback there just runs through the back of the end zone and doesn't touch Cooper, that's a pick. He was bad, but I'm with you. This line has moved a half point. This was a 6-point line. It's now at 6.5. The over-under was at 40.5. Now it's down to 40. 94% of the action's on the under, so that seems to be a pretty solid bet right now at minus 110. So for that many people to be on board with that and to get those kinds of odds is usually pretty good. I'm with you. I don't think Joe Flacco's an NFL quarterback. At least not anymore. And we only get so many more chances to bet against Joe Flacco, and we need to take advantage of these opportunities.
Yeah, like we had always said we weren't sure about the Panthers game, but we thought the next 2 after the Panthers game should be winnable. Maybe we got the Falcons and the Steelers there, so it'll be interesting to see how those games go. Whether the Falcons
no TJ
are real
Watt
or
for
not.
that Steelers game.
What's that?
There won't no TJ Watt for that Steelers game because he's going to be out, I think, 5 weeks. We'll talk more about that. We talk about New England, but
yeah, but I think the Steelers defense is still going to be pretty good. But yeah, this is a game. If you do want to keep your playoff hopes alive, if you believe you're going to be good when Deshaun comes back, you believe you have a chance at the playoffs, you have to beat the Jets. We did lose to the Jets last year. They can't lose to the Jets this year in this situation with Joe Flacco quarterback. You just can't do it. So far, the secondary is still pretty healthy. Only one person down so far. Miles had a great week 1 against a rookie left tackle. Had a lot of big plays in the first half. But once again, he kind of disappeared a little bit in the second half. An elite defense can't play that well for one half and then give up some of the broken plays that they gave up in the second half. That's just not going to work when they get into the tougher part of the schedule with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. But I think this game, they should be able to win this game by a touchdown. If they are just good at running the ball and playing defense like they were last week, they should be okay.
I'm really starting to question Kevin Stefanski's ability to coach a game, because this is a game that they should have been well ahead. Carolina looked awful in that first half.
Yes.
And part of that was being pass happy, and part of that, I think, I guess we can kind of merge some of this into the Carolina talk, because we'll talk about them next. They're traveling to New York to play the Giants, but Matt Rule inexplicably calling a lot of passes, not getting McCaffrey the ball, and they got behind the chains a couple of times. Baker had a couple of fumbles, some bad exchanges with his center, and maybe the reason for that is he's only been there for like a month and a half, and he was splitting time with Sam Darnold, who he was clearly going to beat out. And these are all things that fall on the head coach, Matt Rule. And why do you, as an organization, trade for a guy and then not just put him in as a starter? Like, the whole QB competition thing was ridiculous from the beginning. Sam Darnold was awful last year. He was just awful. And here they go. They come out flat in the first half, and I don't know how you can't question his decision-making. They started running more plays from under center, and their offense opened up a little bit, and this Browns defense started to bend a little bit. And again, we saw the Browns secondary just lapses in defense and giving up big plays. The big play to the tight end, the big play to Robbie Anderson. Like, I remember thinking when they threw that 75-yard bomb, as Baker was throwing it, I was like, oh, you can't give up a touchdown here. I mean, you got to be playing back, not wide open, gets behind the secondary. Those are the things you just can't do when you're playing a good team. And I'm not sure Carolina is a good team. That offensive line looked overmatched by the Browns. I think a lot of offensive lines will look overmatched by the Browns. But I did not see a lot of counterpunching from Stefanski and Woods. And that's something we saw last year. That was something you talked a lot about. I think why is Brissett throwing 28 passes in this game? You were ahead the whole game. Take 5 passes away from Brissett, give 2 or 3 of them to Chubb, and the others to Kareem Hunt, and this is an easy 2-score game. It just feels like Stefanski coached himself into the situation where they needed York to hit that 58-yarder, and they needed 2 really bad calls on that last drive, either of which would have resulted in a Browns loss.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I don't understand it. I mean, I think Jacoby Brissett only threw 2 passes, only completed 2 passes all day, I believe, where the wide receiver was actually able to run after catching the ball.
Oh yeah, nobody could get separation, and he doesn't have the arm strength to take advantage of any separation they do get.
Every ball he threw was nose down. I mean, no excuse for missing those throws. There's no reason to be throwing the ball like that. He got lucky a couple times. Neither one of the really good defensive backs for Carolina made a play on some badly thrown balls. You talked about the play in the end zone. So I don't know what the point was of all the passes. I don't get it. And I just, in the second half for the Panthers, when they just went under center a little bit with a little bit of play action game with McCaffrey, it was like the defense got lost. Like, we know Baker Mayfield is not the fastest quarterback in the league. There should be no excuse for him being able to run 12 yards into the end zone untouched.
Yeah, but another thing that's going to be interesting about this Browns-Jets game is the Jets really shut down the Baltimore run game.
Yes.
Now, some of that was Lamar not trying to run. It looked like he was not trying to run as much, but even with that, they did not. The Jets really controlled the line of scrimmage very well. And that'll be interesting to see, because if this Jets defensive line can slow down the Browns' run attack, what does this offense look like? Because if it looks like it did last week in the passing game, they're going to be a lot of trouble if, let's say Chubb goes for 20 runs for only 75 yards.
Right.
Is that enough to sustain offense and for them to put up enough points? I mean, I think they'll be fine this week, even if the Jets slow them down, because I think they can get into maybe like 20 at least. Even if the run game is bad, they can at least get to 15.
I don't think they need 20 though. I think they could win this game 10-0.
Yeah, I agree. If this defense is as good as we think it can be, then the Jets shouldn't score.
Right. I mean, because and I don't know. I mean, the Jets have a ton of playmakers, and Flacco might actually be the better quarterback in this game, but I still think the defense should be able to eat. So the thing I'm concerned with in this game, because we talked about with Jedrick Wills, he had a lot of poor effort plays week 1. There were a lot of plays where he was beat, and I understand as an offensive lineman, you don't want to get, downfield and get caught with the quarterback still behind him. But he got beat on a lot of plays and just kind of stood still and didn't try to make up the block. He got beat up a lot by Brian Burns in the second half of the game. And now you draw Quinnen Williams in week 2 for the Jets, who could absolutely wreck the game if they try to throw these passes again. Like, just run the ball over and over again. But I agree with you. The Jets did dominate the Ravens line of scrimmage, but I think the Ravens have a better offensive line right now than the Browns do, but I think the Browns running backs are superior to what the Ravens have without J.K. Dobbins.
Well, Chubb looked like he's trying to put his stamp on being the best back in the league last week.
Yeah.
He was breaking tackles. Guys were trying to put him down. And yeah, Chubb's used to doing that. Carolina might also just be bad, and it's a combination of those two where it didn't look like Carolina was very good at tackling, but Nick Chubb's also very good at breaking tackles. So that's what I want to see this week. How much gang tackling can the Jets get? Because it looked like Carolina was trying to tackle Chubb one-on-one with their guys because they couldn't get masses of people towards him. So if it's one-on-one, Chubb's generally going to win that contest because he's a beast.
Yeah, and I would love to see more of that overloaded line that they ran. You know, they had a couple times where they put 2 tight ends together at the end of the line and ran right behind it. I think that's a brilliant move by Stefanski. Don't try to throw the ball 28 times. Like, stop that. He should be throwing the ball 15 times at the most.
Yeah, okay, so we both like the Browns. We think the Jets are pretty bad, especially with Flacco. And it's kind of a test game for the Browns because if they lose this game and they're 1-1, whoo boy, that is not good.
Well, I don't even know if I think if you have to win this game by another long Cade York field goal, then I'm very concerned about.
Yeah, this should be a game they win
these 11 games.
I agree with that. Oh, well, yeah, I'm taking the Browns. So, so we said our next game we were going to talk about was Carolina, the Giants. This line made no sense to me, Jimmy. The New York Giants are 2-point favorites at home. This line was 2.5 this afternoon. It is now 2, and the over-under has gone up half a point. It is 43.5. It was 43 earlier. The Giants are minus 125 on the money line. Carolina's plus 110 on the money line. I still don't think the Giants are good, Jimmy. Am I crazy? Like they had no business winning that game last week.
Well, but they did what you have to do. Well, the thing was, we knew Tennessee was going to look weird without A.J. Brown. Robert Woods isn't quite all the way back yet. So we knew Tennessee's offense was going to look weird if you could control Derrick Henry.
Which they did.
They did a good job of controlling Derrick Henry, and Saquon looked really good. That being said, I agree with you. I still don't think the Giants are better than the Panthers. So I'm taking the Panthers plus 2 and the Panthers money line because I think Carolina is better than New York. I think Tennessee just wasn't quite ready for that game. And the Giants, give them credit. They were up to play. Brian Daboll, a great head coach debut. Great play call on the going for 2. So all the credit to the Giants. I still don't think the Giants are better than the Panthers. I think the Panthers are still the better team here. I think they probably learned a lot about themselves in the second half of that game. I think you'll see much more of that than what they were in the first half. And I think containing McCaffrey is different than containing Henry. We kind of know what you have to try to do to contain Derrick Henry, and the Giants were able to do it. So like I said, kudos to them on a great week 1 victory, but I think that's got this line weird. And I'm taking the Panthers here all day. I think the Panthers win this game outright, so I'll take the points and the money line.
Yeah, I liked Carolina when they were plus 2.5, and I like them at 2. So I think that McCaffrey's going to get involved early. I think they're going to run more of that under center stuff, mix more of those looks in, because that's how Baker succeeds. You put him under center, you let him work the play action game, because when you do that and you have a good running back, and we saw this in Cleveland, he's pretty deadly in the 10 to 20 yard range if you can get him time, and that's what you do by running the football and running play action. When you're just going to sit back in, one back sets where everybody knows you're throwing and the defense can just go after him, that's when he gets into trouble. And I don't really know why Matt Rule opened up the first half that way. It just seemed very strange. It was like he looked at everything that happened last year and said, no, I know how to make that work.
Right.
It was just
Right.
very strange.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I have a Baker take. I told you I was going to talk to you about this. And I'm worried for Baker Mayfield because I think he's in trouble long term. I don't understand why Matt Rule, when the offense was rolling, they have the fumble when they were in field goal range, and then they got super conservative. And you could just tell the whole, like, it just deflated the whole team.
Yep.
And Baker picks up on that shit. Like, he knows when his coach doesn't trust him. And I can already hear all the Baker haters going, "Oh, well, he should be above that." Well, he's not, and that's why he's an average quarterback. And also, newsflash, assholes, what quarterback has succeeded when their head coach hasn't trusted him?
Yeah.
And Matt Rule doesn't have the luxury of saying, "Oh, well, I can just go get another quarterback last year." He has to trust Baker Mayfield. He doesn't have a choice because that's his only option. And I just don't think Baker is ever going to find himself in the right situation like Kirk Cousins did in Minnesota. And I think a big reason for that is perception. It's not reality. Baker is a story every single day. But he's an average quarterback. Why is he a story every day? Like, it's getting ridiculous. I can't turn on 92.3 and try and hear something about the Guardians, or God forbid, like, I finally got to hear some Donovan Mitchell talk today because he did his press conference. Because every time I turn on that station, I hear the name Baker Mayfield and I want to rip my hair out. Because, as Shakespeare would say, doth protest too much. The media loves to play favorites, and Baker ain't a favorite. He got killed about all the stuff with his teammates not being sad that he's gone. But how much of the Russ talk do we hear about how much his teammates didn't like him? We heard about it today because Pete Carroll brought it up, and two of his former teammates made fun of him on social media for losing. The same people who constantly dog Baker for not being able to get it done in the clutch, despite the fact that he did put his team ahead in the fourth quarter with not that much time left, they just ignore the fact. Not only do they ignore the fact that Jimmy G's numbers in the playoffs, not just the games, but like his fourth quarter numbers are abysmal. I mean, he's horrific in the fourth quarter. So why don't we talk about that more? It's because they like him. Jimmy G took very little flack for not telling San Francisco he was having surgery.
Yep.
And I just find the lack of consistency with how fans and media are reacting and covering these things to be horrifically disingenuous. And Baker's a textbook case for that. It's not just Baker. We see this all the time. Like, for some reason, Baker Mayfield seems to be in that LeBron category where he gets talked about a ton, but he doesn't, like, he's not LeBron James. It's very weird to me. And I don't think he's ever going to get a fair shake because the same people who constantly talk about him being an average quarterback, or a lot of people say he's a terrible quarterback, put expectations on him like he's a top 5 quarterback. And that doesn't make sense to me, especially for somebody like Baker who pays attention to this stuff. But, you know, all these guys pay attention to this stuff. And when you hear that shit every single day, the constant goalpost moving, continually being asked to respond to the same stupid bullshit, the vitriol that you see people have, gets to you, man. Like, these guys are human beings. And it's real tough to be me against the world all the time. But these guys are human beings, and it's very easy for fans and media to ignore that. And I've just seen... Man, have I just seen a lot of people just with a lot of vitriol for Baker Mayfield when it just, I don't understand why it seems to be that important to them. Like, it just, all of this seems like a ridiculous circus. How ludicrous all of this is part of the reason why I'm not, like, I've become much less of a fan of sports and more of an observer who looks to gamble on it because the information out there is so out of whack with what's reality. There's opportunities there, but it kind of saddens me because I don't get to be as much of a fan. But also, you know, when we talk seems to be the only time I get to have real sports conversations where we're not coming up with ridiculous hyperbole.
Yeah, I actually don't. I kind of disagree with your first part because I think Baker is in a position to succeed in Carolina. I don't know if that's going to be with Matt Rule, but I think from a talent perspective, I think they've got a lot of pieces on offense and defense. And if Matt Rule can be okay in the weak NFC, I think Carolina can be okay. And if it's not Matt Rule, I think the next coach that would come in, I think would see the pieces that are there and will hopefully recognize what Baker can do. And I think for Baker, there's just so much stuff, right? Because if you go back, like a lot of people want to tell you all the reasons why, like somebody like Colin Cowherd hated Baker Mayfield coming out because of the backwards ball cap and
the crotch grabbing. He always brings that up.
Yeah, all that stuff. The main reason Colin Cowherd dislikes Baker Mayfield so much is because before that draft, Colin Cowherd went on air and said, I believe it was Sam Darnold's floor was Aaron Rodgers and his ceiling was Tom Brady.
Yeah, he was a really big Darnold guy. He loved Darnold. And he bashed the Browns for not taking Darnold. He said they'd regret it.
And they didn't regret it because they actually steadied the organization and steadied the franchise. And, there are so many Cleveland Browns fans that are, Baker is the best quarterback the Cleveland Browns have had in a very, very long time. There's no arguing it. But I think the problem is nobody really knows. Like we talked about before, is he a bust? Is he not a bust? I don't think he's a bust. And I think once he steadies Carolina's organization, he's definitely not going to be viewed as a bust. And there's so much revisionist history now of, you should have taken Josh Allen. You should have taken Lamar Jackson. No, you shouldn't have taken either one of them. There wasn't enough information on Josh Allen to take him as the number one overall pick in the draft. There just wasn't. Kudos to Buffalo on what he's turned into, but if Buffalo would have had the number one pick, they wouldn't have taken Josh Allen either. You couldn't take him at number one overall. Baker went into a horrific situation and steadied the ship, and from right away, there were so many people so sure he'd never have any level of success. And then once the team succeeded, it was because of the team, never because of Baker.
Yeah, but those same people give Jimmy G a lot of credit. So that's what I find that so disingenuous because the numbers bear out that Jimmy G, like, look, if you want to bash Baker, that's fine. But you can't bash Baker and also praise Jimmy G. Like, you just can't do it. Like, that just makes no sense.
No, and there actually were a lot of Browns players doing interviews this past week who pretty much said they didn't have a problem with Baker. So, I mean, it was so, and even like, and it was funny because even like at the halftime show, I don't know if you watched any of the halftime coverage, but the halftime coverage of the game, one of the guys on the set was trying to make it up like, oh, Baker gave the Browns so much ammunition. And Nate Burleson was like, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
Nate was like, he didn't. It's just another game. Like, stop it.
Well,
like,
I mean, I think they seemed to be a little bit up for that game. But again, everything that happened in that first half seemed to be, everything played right into the strengths of this Browns team. They want to rush the passer, and they want to make you throw into that secondary. And Carolina played right into their hands. And I think other teams that do that are going to be about as effective as Carolina was.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the defense looked phenomenal. The running game looked phenomenal. But I do think Carolina this week, I think they'll look much more like the team that played in the second half than the first half. And hopefully Matt Rule and Ben McAdoo will come to trust Baker a little bit more, not get quite so conservative, because they were moving the ball pretty well before they decided to settle for the field goal.
Yeah. Well, I hope so, because I've got some bets that would very much like for that to happen.
Yep.
All right, that's probably enough on Cleveland Baker. I think this podcast is pretty much going to close the book on that moving forward. And so there it is. That was my spiel on what I think the future holds for Baker. I hope it doesn't happen that way, but I think he has more talent than that. But I worry because our society in general just doesn't know what to do with the middle. Like, everything's either awful, the worst thing that ever happened, a total bust, or you're the greatest thing ever. And there's a lot of guys that I'm going to talk about in these next games that some of them are talked about like they're really fucking good, and they haven't shown it in quite some time. Two people who are really fucking good, though, are Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, and they very often show how good they are. And we get to watch these two guys battle tomorrow night as the Kansas City Chiefs host the LA Chargers. The Chiefs are 4-point favorites. The over-under sits at 54. Chiefs' money line is minus 200. The Chargers' money line is plus 175. Jimmy, this should be a lot of fun to watch. Do you like the Chiefs to be 4 points better than the Chargers?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs will win this game by a touchdown late, or maybe like 6 points. I think they'll get the 4. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think the Chiefs are rolling a little bit more. The Chargers struggled a little bit last weekend. Doesn't look like Keenan Allen's going to play, so that'll
that's a big loss.
Slow down the Chargers offense a little bit. So I think Kansas City will win this game by a touchdown. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. I think they'll have it under control, man, because they look so good. Like they just absolutely dominated a team that's supposed to be kind of good. I don't think they're good at all. Everybody else, some people think they're good.
There's talent on that Arizona team, Jimmy. There's talent. That team won a lot of games last year. I know they don't have DeAndre Hopkins, but there's talent on that team, and they got fucked up.
Oh, so you think it was just more of a case of Kansas City's that good?
I am taking Kansas City this week. I am taking the over because Kansas City seems to get to 30 every week. So LA's definitely going to get to 20. So I'll roll the dice that they get 5 more somewhere in there. I think this Kansas City Chiefs team, I said before the year, remember what happened with some of those Philadelphia Eagles teams. The 4th year was the best year. That was the year they finally made the Super Bowl, when they went to all those NFC Championship games in a row. And I think these guys know each other. I think they trust each other. And I think Patrick Mahomes is a little upset that some people were greatly exaggerating his demise and putting him as low as 8th. Jimmy, he was ranked as the 8th best quarterback by, was that Pro Football Focus before the season or the NFL? Like, he was way down. People were putting Justin Herbert above him. I've heard people talk about Derek Carr being better than him, and those people were wrong. We told you they were wrong. The Chiefs are rolling. This team is really good. We get to find out just how good they can be, because the Chargers looked good, but that defense didn't look like they could really hold up. They had to rely on turnovers and big sacks. Maybe you can get those against Kansas City, but that tends to be high variance. And if you don't get any of those against Kansas City, this is going to be just a dominating performance again. And I think Kansas City wants people to stop talking about Buffalo. And I think that on Monday, I think Friday morning, we're not going to be talking about Buffalo. We're going to be talking about how good Kansas City is.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr threw some bad interceptions, which helped the Chargers cause, but...
No, when's Derek Carr ever done that?
Well, apparently we're the only ones that ever see it, then. But the Chargers had a lot of trouble covering Devontae Adams, and obviously the Chiefs don't have one wide receiver talented as Devontae Adams, but they got like 5 great route runners, and they all kind of showed up, and I think it's just going to be pick your poison every week. I don't know how you try to defend this passing attack. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked really good. I said it. I picked I still believe the Chiefs are better than the Bills. I think the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl this year. They had a great week 1, and I think a lot of people have the Chargers valued very high, and I think that'll come down after they lose to the Chiefs this week.
Yeah, and just to add, I think the Chargers are going to battle for that 3rd spot in the conference, but I don't think they're ready for this game. I just think Kansas City, Arrowhead's going to be, just that place is going to be so loud. It's going to be hopping. I think Kansas City makes a big statement. Our next matchup is the Baltimore Ravens are home. They are taking on the Miami Dolphins. Baltimore is 3.5-point favorites. The over-under sits at 44.5. The Ravens are minus 190 on the money line. The Dolphins plus 160. Jimmy, do you like the Ravens to win this by 3.5?
Yeah, I think the Ravens win this game by a touchdown. I think this line is inflated because people wanted to believe New England was good, and Miami did it to them again. I think the Ravens are going to beat the hell out of the Dolphins. I think the Ravens may be the second best team in the AFC, certainly right there, second, third best team in the AFC. I think they're going to have more. They're going to have less up and down than what the Bills have. You know, the Bills last year lost a lot of weird games. You know, so I just think the Ravens are going to be a little bit more even keeled than what the Bills are going to be. I love their team. J.K. Dobbins is coming back. This will be his first action, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays in to the offense. I think the Ravens will win this game easily.
Yeah, Miami really put it to New England, but they did get a defensive touchdown in there, and the offense didn't really look all that fantastic with Tua. Those questions are going to continue. Baltimore, we had mentioned earlier, struggled to run against that Jets front. This Miami front, I don't think is as good. But even with that, Baltimore was able to make plays in the deep passing game. And if they're able to do one of those two things, that should be enough to win this game by 3.5. I also like the over in this game.
Yeah.
I just really think Vegas is undervaluing Baltimore right now. And I think
agree.
Everybody should be trying to cash in on that. Our next game is another one that really confused me, Jimmy. The Washington Armada. Well, this is another one that had a big move. This line's moved a whole point. This line has moved a whole point since this afternoon. When I checked it earlier, it was Washington plus 2.5. Now it is Washington plus 1.5. So the Detroit Lions are favored. The over-under sits at 48.5. The money line is Lions minus 125, Washington plus 105. It seems like everybody jumped on Washington as soon as they saw that line. I think Detroit's the king of backdoor covers, but Washington looked pretty good last week. I don't think Detroit's winning this game.
No, I don't think so either. I'm taking Washington. DeAndre Swift's a little banged up as well. So without him at full strength, I don't think Detroit is quite as good. But Jared Goff does seem to have a good rapport with a couple of the receivers. But I just think Washington's a better team. Carson Wentz looked good. So
these games don't matter. So he's going to look great.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's okay though, right? Because we've got to take that value when we get it, when we know
absolutely.
There's games like this. So yeah, I don't understand why anybody would take Detroit in this game personally. I think Washington will win this game pretty easily.
Well, a game that just baffled the hell out of me last week. The Colts tied the Texans, and they are now on the road going to Jacksonville, and they're 4-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5. The money line is plus 165 on the Jaguars, minus 196 for the Colts. I love Jacksonville in this game, plus 4. What did Indianapolis do last week, and what did Jacksonville do last week to make people think the Colts are 4 points better than the Jaguars, Jimmy? Because I don't see it.
Well, Jacksonville struggled at spots in their game last week, but it was the first game with the new coaching staff. And the Colts did battle back, but I think Lovie Smith made a couple personnel decisions late on offense that I didn't care for. I think might have cost them the game. I think he got a little too carried up in Rex Burkhead and got away from their rookie. But, I'm with you. I'm on Jacksonville here. I had Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville is better than Houston right now, so there's no reason to think that Indy's going to beat Jacksonville by more than a field goal if they win. So I'll absolutely take Jacksonville at plus 4.
I mean, this is Jacksonville's home for this game, and they're 4-point dogs. Man, I think that's crazy. I know this Jacksonville team looks like they're a year away, but they look better than that. And Indianapolis certainly didn't look that good.
But Matt Ryan looked really bad.
He looked old. And he is old. He wasn't that good the last 2 years. He's not MVP Matt Ryan anymore. I don't know. We were on that, though.
He fumbled a lot of snaps. He had trouble taking snaps. Michael Pittman looks like he might be the real deal, but Matt Ryan struggled. Jonathan Taylor bailed them out in that game, and I think he's going to do that a lot of times. But I think Jacksonville will be up for this game. I think they're going to realize they let one slip away last week, and I think they're really going to be out to play in this game. So I don't know if I'm going to take the money line for sure on Jacksonville yet, but I'm definitely taking Jacksonville at plus 4.
Another game last week that was a lot like that Indianapolis game was New Orleans. They ended up coming back and beating Atlanta. They are now home taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're 2.5-point underdogs, despite seeming to always have Tampa Bay's number. The over-under is 44. Tampa Bay is minus 145 on the money line. New Orleans plus 125. Jimmy, I'm just taking New Orleans because they just seem to always beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm going the other way. I'm going to take Tampa. I thought Tampa looked. I mean, Dallas's offense is bad, but I do think Dallas still has a pretty good defense. And for week one, Tampa moved the ball at will. They did settle for some field goals, but I'm taking Tampa here. I think they are going to win this game. I think they'll win by a couple scores. I really believe that. But I still really like the Saints. I love what they did last week. They were my survivor pool pick. I'm glad they pulled it out.
Yeah.
Jameis
well, all
actually
the other,
leads.
You had all those teams that had, the Giants won, Atlanta won. So a lot of people got knocked out in week one. We told you New Orleans was a good survivor pool pick because you don't necessarily need to use them later. We came through for you people, so I hope we helped you.
Yep. But I did like a lot of what New Orleans did in the second half once they got going. They used Taysom Hill the right way instead of just trying to make him a quarterback. So that was smart of them. They used him with some deception, looked good. Michael Thomas came back, looked really good. I think the Saints are going to be a good team, but I think Tampa is going to be really good. The defense looked really, really good, and the offense was moving the ball. Julio Jones looked better than I've seen him look in a long time. So I think even without Godwin, I think Julio just steps up a little bit more. I think Tampa will win this one pretty easily.
Our next game is the New England Patriots are traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. The Patriots are 2-point favorites. They were 1.5-point favorites earlier today, so this line has moved a half point towards New England. The over-under is 40. The money line for New England is minus 125. Pittsburgh is plus 108. No TJ Watt in this game, Jimmy. The Matt Jones injury chatter is already picking up, and I'm sure all of the people that bashed Baker for being bad on the field would do the same to Mac Jones this year when he's bad on the field, and, it doesn't matter if he's injured or not. But New England has to win this game because they have Baltimore and Green Bay coming up, and those look like losses. Does New England win this game? Can they cover that 1.5? Or can they cover that 2?
No, I'm taking Pittsburgh in the money line because I think Pittsburgh's going to win this game outright.
Ooh, I like it. I do too.
New England looked broken with a healthy Mac Jones before the hit on the back. New England looked broken. They looked all out of sorts. I think Pittsburgh has the weapons to do exactly what Miami did to them. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, even if TJ's out, Minkah looked great. They've got some other key players on the defensive front that looked really good. So I think Pittsburgh's going to win this game outright. I can't trust Mac Jones in this Patriots offense. I mean, they looked so disjointed. They look like they have zero identity. I don't know what they're going to look like.
They look like a team. They look like an offense that has 2 defensive coaches that are in charge of it. That's what it looks like, and an average quarterback.
But to answer your question, no, the Mac Jones will get credit for playing injured. He won't get beat up for playing injured like Baker did.
Yeah, I liked New England when I first looked at this, and the longer I thought about it, the more I switched. I like Pittsburgh. I like the money line. I love the under in this game because I think Pittsburgh, with a banged up Najee Harris, will probably struggle to move the ball. I think they're going to kick a lot of field goals, but I think that Pittsburgh defense, even without TJ Watt, looks like it's pretty good and will probably give Mac Jones a lot of problems.
Yep.
Another game that I initially had one way and switched my pick the more I thought about it was the Rams hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Both Atlanta almost pulled off a win last week, and for their efforts, they get to travel across country and be 10.5-point underdogs. The over-under is 46.5. The money line is minus 600 on the Rams, plus 430 on Atlanta. Everybody expects the Rams to win this game. Nobody's buying Marcus Mariota. And I thought that line was maybe a little high at 10.5. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I think the Rams put the smack down. Or I think that defense is really going to take Marcus Mariota and make him realize that last week was an aberration. What do you think happens in this game, Jimmy?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think for there are very few teams that have roster construction like Buffalo to do what they did on both sides of the ball against the Rams. The Falcons have neither. I think the Rams might win this game by 3 touchdowns. They've got to have a sour taste in their mouth. They've had extra days rest. Man, they're going to beat the crap out of the Falcons. Man, it's going to be ugly.
I really like the over because I feel like this is a game that's going to be a lot like that Philly-Detroit game last week, where Philly was ahead for most of that game, and they just kept piling on points. But Detroit kept putting points on them because they kept kind of playing prevent. I think that ends up happening in this game, but I think it's because the Rams are up by like 20. So I'm not worried about the 10.5. I think they roll. Our next game is the San Francisco 49ers are hosting the surprisingly 1-0 Seattle Seahawks. San Francisco were 9.5-point favorites not that long ago. That was about 7 hours ago. They are now 8.5-point favorites. A lot of money has come in on Seattle. The over-under sits at 41.5. Money line minus 420 for the San Francisco 49ers, plus 350 for the Seahawks. Jimmy, San Francisco looked bad, but they also played in a rainstorm with horrific conditions. Do you think they're 8.5 points better than this Seahawks team?
So, for the sake of our podcast, I'm going to take Seattle, but this is a total stay away from me because I have no idea what either of these teams are going to look like. I mean, that was the best game I've ever seen Geno Smith play. I mean,
it was. I mean, he was efficient. He was making reads. He was throwing passes. He was dealing. And I make fun of Geno Smith all the time, but I'm taking San Francisco in this game because I still think Geno Smith stinks, and I think last week was an aberration. That's what I think.
Okay. I mean, I don't know, man.
I don't think Denver's that good. I don't think Nathaniel Hackett can coach. Those are big problems for Denver because that Denver roster isn't like some top 5 roster. I know people talk about them like they have a top 5 roster, but if you actually listen to the number of top 5 rosters out there, there's 20 top 5 rosters.
Sure.
Denver is not one of those teams. They are an average-ish roster with a quarterback that we will talk about more here once we talk about Dallas Cincinnati and finish talking about this game. But I think San Francisco rolls in this game. I still don't trust Geno Smith. Let me see what he looks like against an actually good defense, not a pretend good defense. The over-under scares me. I'd probably take the under with caution because I think this might be a game where Seattle has a letdown game. San Francisco's got a bad taste in their mouth from last week. Like, I think San Francisco might really put it to them. Our next game is two teams that I don't know if things could have gone worse for them last week, Jimmy. The Cincinnati Bengals are traveling to Dallas. The Bengals are 7.5-point favorites. The over-under is 42. Bengals minus 335 on the money line. Dallas plus 275. No Dak Prescott, so it's Cooper Rush. If Cincy can't win this game easily, I would just be shocked. I like Cincinnati. I like the over. Do you think Cincinnati can win this by 8?
They better.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. If you can't beat Cooper Rush by 8 points, even on the road, to stop your team from going 0-2, then the Super Bowl hangover's in full effect, and adjust accordingly, all bettors.
Yep.
All right, let's move on because that game should be a blowout. We talked about Russell Wilson and their loss to the Seattle Seahawks. The Denver Broncos are now hosting the Houston Texans, who are tied with the Colts atop the AFC South at 0-1. The spread in this game is 10. The over-under is 45. The money line is minus 480 for Denver, plus 380 for Houston. Jimmy, what the fuck did I miss? Why is Denver 10-point favorites in this game?
Yeah, I have no idea. Give me the Texans at plus 10. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, we don't know if Nathaniel Hackett can coach, but we know Lovie Smith will at least have his team up to play. I don't know what Denver's identity plans on being. It was such a weird game plan. Nathaniel Hackett may very well come out this game and be overly aggressive because of the shit he took for the decision to end the game last week.
What the fuck are they paying Russell Wilson $250 million for if not to get 4th and 5s.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't understand what the point of it was, but still the play they made. But I think Indianapolis is probably better than Denver and Seattle.
And I definitely think they're better than Seattle.
and Houston played Indy to a tie, so I don't know why I would think Denver would beat Houston by 10 points. Like, I don't understand
This is a Russell Wilson line. This is the Sharps saying Russell Wilson will not let this stand, man. And we're going to go out there and kick the shit out of this bad Houston team. And I think Houston's bad. I don't think they win this game, but I think this winds up being like a field goal touchdown game. I don't think Denver gets this to 10.
Yeah, I agree.
Our next game is two more teams that did not have Sundays that went as well as they would have hoped. The Las Vegas Raiders are hosting the Arizona Cardinals. The Raiders are 5.5-point favorites. The over-under is 51.5. Raiders minus 225 on the money line. Cardinals plus 195. Jimmy, who do you like in this game? Do you think the Raiders can cover that 5.5?
Well, me and you we're just going to disagree about the Cardinals all year because I don't see the talent that you say you see. I think the Raiders win this game by a touchdown. I don't think the Cardinals will be able to maximize the mistakes that Derek Carr makes, and I think the Raiders are going to win this game by a touchdown. So give me the Raiders.
I'm going to stick with the Cardinals. I'm not going to panic because the best team in the league fucked them up. I don't really like this Vegas team, man. This feels more like a field goal game. This feels like a game that's close in the fourth quarter. Derek Carr hasn't shown that he can make plays against good teams in the fourth quarter. I know he's got a lot of fourth quarter comebacks, but in the games against good teams, he just doesn't seem to have it, especially lately. And I think Arizona's a good team, but if they get housed in this game, or even if this is like a 10-point game, then I'm going to be joining you on the other side of the fence with Arizona, and I will be admitting defeat on that, and we'll check back in with them when DeAndre Hopkins comes back.
Yeah.
Our next game is the Green Bay Packers hosting the Chicago Bears. The Packers looked like garbage last week against Minnesota, just like I told you they would. The Bears won in the monsoon, so good for Justin Fields. I was happy to see that. There were some great shots of them sliding around on the field, which is about all that field was good for. The Bears are 10-point underdogs in Green Bay. The over-under sits at 42.5. Packers minus 475. Bears plus 360. Jimmy, I've been making this bet forever because Green Bay owns Chicago. Aaron Rodgers owns Chicago. And I'm just going to keep betting it until it loses. So I don't know what you're going to do in this game, but that's what I'm going to do in this game.
Yeah, I believe last year we dubbed this a legacy bet.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I mean, this, as bad as Green Bay looked week one this year, it's not as bad as they looked week one last year.
Yeah, that was awful. That was against New Orleans, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had to play that weird game where they played against New Orleans, but in Jacksonville or something.
Yeah, I forget the exact circumstances. Yeah, but that was just a weird game. But I forgot to look up Rodgers' record against Chicago because I remember I looked it up last year and it was really, really good. He owns this team. Just keep betting it till it loses, man. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be able to win this game by 2 touchdowns. Green Bay's defense is a little better than they played against Minnesota. I think they made some mistakes by not having their best corner just shadow.
Yeah, a lot of Justin zone on Jefferson. That was if you're just going to play zone, he's going to kill you.
Yeah, that was weird to me why they didn't do that, but I think they'll fix that. I think they'll be okay. Alan Lazard should be back, so it'll be somebody that Aaron's a little bit more comfortable with, and hopefully they'll get Aaron Jones a little bit more involved because he wasn't as involved as I would have thought he would be, but that was kind of how they bounced back week 2 last year. They got Aaron Jones really involved, so I think they'll do that again. I think they'll win this game by 2 touchdowns.
All right, another 10-point game is the Buffalo Bills are home. They are hosting the Tennessee Titans, who just blew a game last week. That was an ugly loss for the Titans, and to come and to have to now travel to Buffalo that looked as dominant as Kansas City did. I mean, Buffalo and Kansas City look like the 2 best teams in football, and this line shows it. The over-under is 48.5. This is the early game on Monday night, by the way. Buffalo minus 435 on the money line. Tennessee plus 360. Jimmy, everything you said about Tennessee looked to be true. They look limited offensively without A.J. Brown. Derrick Henry looked like maybe he's not quite the Derrick Henry that we're all hoping he would be. I think Buffalo just really puts it to Tennessee, and the Titans are panicking at 0-2. I still think they have enough to win that really bad AFC South, but I don't think things are going to go well for them this week.
Yeah, this is one thing where I'm going to just kind of completely base this pick on what I saw from these two teams in week one, not what I think their seasons are going to be. Buffalo should be able to, I mean, if Buffalo can't beat a team that just lost to the Giants by more than 10 points, then you can stop telling me how elite they are.
That was their problem last year. They were really inconsistent, and they played down to a lot of opponents.
But I'm going to put that knowledge aside for this. I'm just going by what I watched both of these teams do in week one. So I'm going to take the Bills. They should win this game by 2 touchdowns, so they should be able to cover the 10.
Yeah, I also love the over in this. I'm just going to keep taking Buffalo because they seem to keep playing games where they don't punt.
Yeah.
And in terms of the over-unders, I don't care if they turn the ball over. That's actually better if they turn the ball over because that takes up less time than a punt and gives the other team more chance to score. So Until they start punting, I'm taking all overs. Our last game of the week is two teams that really couldn't have gone better for both of these teams. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings both had big wins. Philadelphia's home for this one. The spread is -2 for Philly. The over-under sits at 50.5. Eagles money line -130. Vikings money line +112. Jimmy, do you think Philadelphia can beat this Minnesota team by more than 2 points on the late Monday night game?
I think this is going to be one of the best games of the week. It's just two teams that really came out and played well. It looked like they're both kind of trying to reset where the strengths are in the NFC. I love both of these teams, but I'm going to take the Vikings here. I think the Vikings can handle this game. They looked like a completely different unit with the new head coach. Offensively, defensively, they were ready for week one. I think they'll be ready for week two. If they're able to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, they shouldn't have any trouble. If Jalen Hurts gets loose, then things might get a little hairy for him. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Vikings.
I will hesitantly pick the Vikings because I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. What I do know is going to happen in this game is that these teams can score. So I love the over. Not as big on the actual pick because I think we're going to learn a lot about these two teams this week. And it's going to give us a template, or it's going to give us an idea of how to bet these teams moving forward. Yeah. And if this just turns out to be one of those where it's just them going back and forth and putting points on each other and, you know, a big stop, then a score, then another score, then another score, then a stop and a score, I think we'll find out a lot about them. Justin Jefferson, man, that dude is just really fucking good. And A.J. Brown looks like he looks like exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles needed. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. I think it's a great game to end the week on. And one of these teams is going to be 2-0 and riding really high.
Yep.
Well, that's the week 2 slate, man. I'm super interested, like I said, in that Philly-Minnesota game. The Vegas-Arizona game really has me interested as well because I think we'll get a good gauge on where those teams are. And that New England-Pittsburgh game, man, I know it's weird to like really dig in on some of these like middle sort of upper middle of the road teams, but I think we'll learn a lot about those teams. And of course, we all just want to see the fireworks tomorrow night. What games are you really looking forward to?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the first game and the last game of the week. I think those are the two games I'm most excited for to kind of see where I believe the Chiefs are the best team, I think, in the NFL. So I'm really curious to see where the Chargers stack up. And I believe the Eagles and the Vikings are two of the 4 best teams in the NFC. So I'm really curious to see where they stack up. But I agree with you. I just think it's the games that kind of have the weird lines. But, I mean, I'm actually curious to see how the Texans-Broncos game plays out to see where that comes down.
Yeah, it just seemed like an obnoxiously big line.
Yeah, and then the Giants-Carolina game, I'm also interested to see if the Giants can actually put back-to-back performances together for wins.
Yeah, and if a couple of just early first coaches to get fired, if Carolina loses this weekend, Matt Rule's going to be pretty much right at the top of that list.
Yeah, I will make sure I do. I'll make sure I do a deep dive into who all is in their house that could take over. I don't know if you'd want to turn the keys over to Ben McAdoo.
I don't think that sounds like you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good time. So I'll start digging in to see what they might do, because I agree with you. If they lose to the Giants, it might be over for Matt Rule. Like, there might not be anything else to it.
Yeah, it may be, because the only other coach that I could think of that would really be in a position to be fired would be Robert Saleh in New York, but I don't think they can. I don't think they can hold what that team looks like against him when they have Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback, unless Arizona just totally shits the bed and their season goes right down the tubes and they fire Kingsbury, which would just be shocking after they extended him. Maybe Mike McCarthy, but I don't think he's getting fired before Dak comes back. So I really think Matt Rule's in that sweet spot is like the only guy that could get fired mid-season right now.
Yeah, for right now. But I already told you I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is going to make it the whole year. I don't believe he's going to make it. I think this team's going to underperform to where they're going to have to do something. And I think the move's going to be get rid of Kingsbury. I just feel that because
after signing him to all that money, I would just be shocked at that, because they're going to be paying him for years if they fire him.
I do have a question for you, though.
Okay.
Let's just say, by chance, the San Francisco 49ers lose to the Seattle Seahawks. Does Jimmy Garoppolo start week 3?
Wow. I can't even answer that question. Because one, I have to live in a world where Geno Smith is good against a really good defense, and my brain I just can't wrap my head around that. It would depend on how Trey Lance looks. I'm not reading a whole lot into what Trey Lance did last week. I mean, it's a fucking monsoon. That field was a mess. That field seems to be a mess even when it's not poor conditions. So
yeah, you're not wrong there.
I'm just sort of throwing that game out. I know that game counts, but in terms of my perception for how I'm betting with San Francisco, I can't make any long-term projections based on what I saw last week.
All right.
But if Trey Lance looks really bad and Geno Smith looks really good, I think San Francisco has bigger problems than who their quarterback is. Because if they can't shut down Geno Smith, how good is that defense?
That's fair. But what if Seattle wins 17-10?
I feel like that's too many points to give up to Geno Smith at home if you're San Francisco. Like, you've got Nick Bosa, that defense. Like, this team is supposed to compete for the Super Bowl this year.
Nice.
You can't be. They were in the NFC Championship game last year. You cannot be a team that has those types of aspirations and not be able to shut down Geno Smith. So if they lose this game because they can't make Geno Smith worse than Trey Lance, they've got bigger problems. And they're on. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think San Francisco wins. I think they rout them. But I might have to take back some of my criticism of Pete Carroll, because if they keep this game close and they keep playing well, I'll have to shift my focus, because I thought this would be one of the worst teams in the league. I thought Seattle was just going to be bad.
I projected them to win 0 games, so.
Well, you're already wrong. I thought they'd be lucky to win 3, and they've already won 1. So maybe Pete Carroll knows what he's doing. He seems to be in a better position than I thought, and I don't know. Maybe he's found something with Geno Smith. It would be the first time we've really seen something like this happen with a quarterback, because normally when you go with these retreads, it just doesn't work.
Yep. And I got the Packers. Because of the legacy bet, I got the Packers for my survivor pool pick this week.
Because I like to gamble a little more early in the year. I think I'd take Cincinnati.
Actually, I didn't even. Yeah,
I like Cincinnati
yeah,
because I think Green Bay is going to have better games later in the year.
yeah, and there's
always the second Green Bay Chicago game.
Yeah, there's probably not a better spot to take Cincinnati than right here. You're right there.
That one just popped out at me just because Dallas, man, that team. We really hit the panic button on them, and it just seems like the roof is caving in. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to be good for Mike McCarthy. I think he gets the whole season, but I don't think he's going to make it through the off season. I don't think he'll be back next year.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't look good before the Dak injury. I mean, they looked really bad in that football game.
Yeah. All right, that's probably enough for week 2. We will be back next week with our week 3 picks, and then we will be taking a 2-week break because I'm going on my honeymoon after getting married next week. So we will see you all next week and then take a brief break, and then we'll see you after. Until then, Jimmy, thank you for joining me to talk about week 2 and toss out some of your thoughts and find our listeners some winners.
Yeah, no place I'd rather be, brother.
And I would also like to thank all of you for listening. Please give us a like or subscribe. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore, and we will see you next week on No Broken Legs.